Okay. So just start doing this thing. So that so this is the first question. Try to do this question. We will see how far you will. So I have written the relevant required equations. So what is how many? I mean, what is the CPU total execution time? We knew that it is CPU clock cycles into clock cycle, but now no longer it is just CPU clock cycles. You also have to add the memory stall cycles. It depends on the cache and how you are handling it. Right? So it's the CPU clock cycles plus memory stall cycles. Initially, we had assumed that there are no memory stalls. Everything is a hit in the cache, which means that the memory would take just one cycle. So there were no stalls. So it was just CPU clock cycles into clock cycle time. That was the execution, CPU execution time. But now it is CPU clock cycles, which means that the CPU is doing some relevant work with the memory stall cycles into clock cycle time. And how do I calculate the memory stall cycles? So it's the instruction count. IC is the instruction count. So how many instructions are there into memory accesses per instruction into miss rate into miss penalty. So that's the memory stall cycles. These are kind of okay. I think I have it. So these are kind of straightforward equations. So memory stall cycles is instruction count into memory accesses per instruction into miss rate into miss penalty. So then you calculate the memory stall cycles, then you plug it into the CPU execution time. And the CPU execution time is CPU clock cycles plus memory stall cycles into the clock cycle time. So can you do this and see what you will get? You have to assume that memory accesses per instruction. If you are enabling a cache, it also goes through the just a second. Yeah. So can you try to do this problem? So the thing is, if you are considering cache, you have to consider that the number of memory accesses per instruction is one plus whatever it is, because for the even the instruction you would access the cache. Yeah, just start trying it out. Take a piece of pen and paper. Start trying it out. If you are stuck, I will help you.
Sir,
Yeah, go
could you
ahead.
please pause the screen share on the question page?
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, somebody has sent me an ODT file. Some I don't have the Microsoft Word installed on my thing. Okay, so let's try to do this problem. So let's assume that it's always how much faster it's if all were cache hits, right? So let's say all were cache hits. Then what is the CPU execution time? CPU execution time is the CPU clock cycles. That is the that is the instruction cycle, instruction count into clock cycles per instruction, CPI. So that is the CPU clock cycles. So now how many clock cycles does it take? The number of instructions, the instruction count into clock cycles per instruction, and the memory store cycles are 0 because everything is a cache hit. So we are taking it as like we are taking it as one cycle, so there is no stall as such. So it's IC into CPI plus 0 into clock cycle itself. And let's assume that the clock cycles per instruction is 1. So that's what is already given. CPI is 1.0. So this is IC into 1.0 into clock cycle. So is this okay? Is everybody following? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so continue doing the assignment. Okay, let's take attendance. Dinesh? Aditya Sharma?
Yes, sir.
Yashwant?
Present.
Amit Kesari?
Yes, sir.
Grishmita? Badri Gautam? Baindla Gautam?
Present, sir.
Babba Rutvik? Shrupashri?
Yes, sir.
Venkata Sandeep? Chinta Gautami? Sahiti Rani?
Present, sir.
Dipeshi Das?
Present, sir.
Vaibhav?
Yes, sir.
Gaddam Kishore
Present,
Ravi?
sir. Present, sir.
Gagan Hegde? Ganna Yashwant? SVS Pavan Shahid? Pavan Shriram?
Yes, sir.
Aditya Nagasai? Ravichandra? Harshita?
Yes, sir.
Pavan Kalyan?
Yes, sir.
Pradeep Das?
Present, sir.
Sai Kritik? Ashrit Sai?
Present, sir.
Chandra Sai?
Present, sir.
Nagendra Deepika? Gunashri Nitesh? Naman Sharma?
Present, sir.
Navjot Singh?
Yes, sir.
Anurag Reddy?
Yes, sir.
Vivek Manicharan? Sandeep Sundar Raj?
Yes, sir.
Rajendra Kumar?
Yes, sir.
Saurav Gwaliya? Kranti?
Present, sir.
Shritesh?
Present, sir.
Sagar Bhupendra?
Present, sir.
Suman P? Varun Sai Reddy? Gurugar? Jaswant? Yai Sai Shrudan?
Yes, sir.
Anu Anand Anu? Naga Sai Venkata
Present, sir.
Gitin George?
Present, sir.
Harish Pradyut? Ritika?
Yes, sir.
Purna Shyama Sundar?
Yes, sir.
Talha Shamim?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so okay, I hope you were able to understand this. So what am I doing here? I'm first trying to calculate the CPU execution time of if all the cache hits. So the memory stall cycles are 0. The CPU clock cycles are now just nothing but how many instructions that were executed into clock cycles per instruction, right? CPI is clock cycles per instruction. If you have forgotten about it, CPI is clock cycles per instruction. And into clock cycle. So the total per all the cache hits is instruction count into 1.0 into clock cycle. But if there is a real cache, right? So with real cache, so let's see if.
Sir, could you please share your screen?
Oh. Okay, I will change it. Okay. So CPU execution time is instruction clock into CPI plus 0 into clock cycle. So CPU execution time is the instruction. So now I am trying to find out how many CPU clock cycles are there. So the number of CPU clock cycles are instruction count into clock cycles per instruction. So how many instructions were there into the clock cycles per instruction will give me the CPU clock cycles, total CPU clock cycles. And the memory stall cycles, if all the cache hits is nothing but 0 because there are no memory stall cycles, or if they all the cache hits. So the CPU execution time is IC into 1.0 into clock cycle. Right. So this I hope is clear to everybody. Is this clear? If this is clear, I'll go forward. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If there is cache, what should you do? First, I have to find out what is the memory stall cycles, right? So what is the memory stall cycles? I know that the formula is instruction count into memory accesses per instruction. So how many memory accesses are there per instruction? It is 1.0 plus 4, and you know that there is total 50% of the instructions are okay. 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 Okay, so now we are assuming that the 50% of the accesses are missed. So it is 1.0 plus 0.5. And now you have to, for those number of things, you have to see what is the miss rate. So the miss rate is 2%. So which means that some of 2% of the accesses that were generated will not be available in the cache. So it is 0.02 into miss penalty. So the miss penalty is the number of cycles. So it's 25 clock cycles. So this is the total memory stall cycles for if there is a cache, right? So that I can calculate it totally. I can say it's 1.75 into IC into clock cycle time. So this is with cache. So now if I have to find out the performance ratio, if having a cache, how fast is it? If I have to, I mean, if like with no cache misses, how much time it is faster, then I have to just say CPU execution time cache by the CPU execution time. So it's around 1.75 times faster. So with no cache misses, it's 1.75 times faster. Okay. Is this okay?
Yes, sir.
See this, if there is a cache, it's 1.75 times slower. So without cache, it's 1.7 times. Either way you look at it, it's the same.
Sir, I don't understand the 1 plus 0.5 part.
Yeah, so the instruction count, okay. This is not, sorry, I miss, okay. See, now this 1.0 is the, I have to figure out how many memory accesses per instruction are there, okay. So the memory accesses per instruction for given instruction, let's say there are 100 instructions, all are arithmetic instructions. How many memory accesses will you do?
50.
No, okay, I think I'm not visible, I guess. Okay, see, there are 100 instructions. All are arithmetic instructions. How many accesses, memory accesses will you do?
0.
No, I mean, we are assuming that the instructions are also in the cache. So you do 100 accesses.
Okay.
Okay. And in those 100 instructions, we are saying 50% of them are loads and stores. So for an instruction, if it is a load and store, you do 2 accesses, right? One for the instruction itself, one for the load and store that it generates. Okay, I think your format. I'll write it down. Let's see. Okay, is this clear? Is it clear till here? Is it clear for everybody till here at least? Yeah, just answer if the first one is clear. If the first one is not clear, maybe we can go over it again. Forget about with the cache. We are just talking about without cache. Okay, so with cache is clear for most of you. So these are just straightforward formulas. Okay, so if there is cache, right? Let's say there are 100 instructions, and 100 are ALU instructions. So now for every instruction, how does the if I have enabled the cache, and I'm no longer assuming that everything is hit in the cache. I'm no longer assuming that everything is hit in the cache, which means that the instruction fetch stage for every instruction, the instruction fetch stage should go to the cache and fetch this, fetch the instruction itself, because the instruction itself is stored in a memory. In your simulator, when you are developing the simulator, I had given you the option that you can choose to have the instruction fetch as if it's always a cache hit, but that need not always be true. You have to fetch the instruction from the cache, and the cache itself has some miss rate. So it's not that, let's say I have 1 billion instructions. Okay, it's not that all these instructions will fit in the cache. Is this okay?
Yes.
Okay. So now I have to do instruction fetch. I should go to the cache and fetch the instruction. So which means that for if there are 100 and there are 100 ALU instructions, how many memory accesses do I generate? How many memory accesses do I generate? 100, right? I generate 100 memory accesses. Yeah, it's not just for Devasi. Please try, others also try to attempt to answer. Right? Okay. So you generate 100 memory accesses. So how many accesses per? So if I follow this logic, if I have 100 ALU instructions, how many accesses per instruction?
2.
No, right?
So if you're saying the IF is also a memory access.
Yeah, so that's why I am fetching the instruction. So that's okay. This should have.
Oh, that's the only memory instruction. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay.
So these are all ALU instructions. So for every instruction, I have to fetch the instruction. So there's an instruction fetch. So I should go to the cache and fetch the instruction. So if there are 100 ALU instructions, I'm not generating any loads and stores, right? So I'm generating 100 memory accesses. Okay, so to fetch the instruction.
Yes.
Maybe
So one access per.
Yeah, one access for this instruction, right? So if there was no memory accesses, what should I have plugged in here? I should have plugged in it is 1, right? This in this equation, this should have become 1 because the number of memory accesses per instruction would have become 1. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes. Right. Okay. So now what they are saying is, out of these 100 instructions, the only data accesses are loads and stores, and these are form 50% of the instructions. Okay. So if now these 100 ALU, so now it's not like this. Let's say there are 100. So now it is 100 instructions. Okay. Among the 100 instructions, 50 are loads and stores. We don't know what them, but we are not worried about it. Okay. So now what are the total number of memory accesses that you generate? You generate 100 for fetching all the instructions. Agreed?
Yes, sir. Plus
another 50. Okay.
Yes,
so per instruction, how much memory accesses do you generate? 1.5.
1.5.
Yes. So that's what we have written here. It is 1 for getting the instruction, 0.5 because 50% of them are loads. So now I have the instruction count. How many instructions are there in the program? Memory accesses per instruction. The memory accesses per instruction are 1.5. That's what I figured out. The miss rate is 0.02 and the miss penalty is 25. So the memory stall cycles is whatever is this, right? So and now I plug this here in the CPU clock cycle, in the here.
Yes, sir, it's fine after this. I understand.
Okay.
Sir, but if we had more information, such as a different miss rate and different miss penalty for the instruction fetch, instruction cache and the data cache, then we would multiply them separately for the 1 and for the 0.
Yes, excellent. Yes, right. Yeah. But I'm not going into that because that might just confuse you, so that you can eventually find it out. But if you understand this, you can easily find it out. Okay. Is this clear for everybody? If you are not understanding, please let me know. These are the questions that I'll be asking in the exam also. I know that it's early morning. But does anybody have any questions regarding this? Can we move forward? Hello?
Yes, sir, we can move forward.
Yeah, but others are not even speaking, right? I think they have switched on the phone and sleeping, I guess. Hello? Okay, so now I'll randomly start asking people. Talha, Shamim?
Yes, sir.
So you understood this?
Sir?
Did you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so since everybody is saying understood, so just to make you wake you up from the sleep, I will ask you a question. Let's see how many of you will answer. So I have this code. I think I might have written it even in the first class. Okay, so this is a very so this code everybody has seen again and again, right? So I have something like this. So okay, something like this. Okay, so now I have this piece of code. If I know that if I give it to the compiler, or if you know something about you already know something about the pipeline. Now you know that in the pipeline, so this is an if statement, right? So you are executing one instruction here. You are executing a of I is equal to 3 into x into I. And then you are executing a branch statement here, right? So does everybody follow? So now if I convert this to assembly code, you have already been writing assembly code. So if I convert this to assembly code, then what happens is that this instruction is one instruction. Let's assume that it's one instruction. It's like a of I is equal to 3 into x into I. Of course, it's not a single instruction, but assume that it's a single instruction. And then there is a branch instruction. So what is the branch instruction checking? Whether I is less than 100 or not. Right? So now for every instruction, you have a branch instruction. But you already know that if I have a branch instruction, that is pretty bad to have it. So I want to have as minimal branch instructions as possible. Why? Because branch instructions means the branch predictor should be accurate. Even if the branch prediction goes wrong, then you will have to flush the pipeline, get all the carry instructions from the target again. Right? So that I hope you remember. So what generally the compiler does is the compiler will say, okay, this guy is doing something like this. I will do something like this. Or it will say, okay, I still less than 100, but it will say maybe I plus equal to 4. Now what it will write is a of I is equal to 3 into x into I. Okay. And maybe it will write something like this. I plus 1, right, and this is I plus 1. And this will write I plus 2 and I plus 3. Assuming that the boundary conditions are taken care. Let's assume that it's just that the boundary conditions are taken care. We are not worried about any of things of sort. So don't you think this will perform better? So does anybody think that this will not perform better, or do you have any thoughts on this? So I've just transformed this, right? So do you think this will perform better?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. Because now for every 4 instructions, you have a branch instruction. Right? So for every 4 instructions, you have a branch instruction, which means that you should be performing better, right? Because now the CPU, if you are writing assembly code, you will know that you're executing this instruction and this instruction, and you are very sure that this particular instruction, right? This particular instruction, of course, it's not visible here. This particular instruction is not dependent on this particular instruction. So there is no dependency among the 4 instructions. This technique you will be studying is called loop unrolling. So you are unrolling the loop. And why do I do the loop unrolling? Because I am removing the branch instructions and I am also enabling the parallelism, right? So what parallelism I am enabling? I am enabling something called ILP. ILP stands for instruction level parallelism. And why is that ILP getting enabled? Because you can see that all the 4 instructions are independent to each other. So in the pipeline, I have generated 4 instructions which are independent with each other and just giving it to the pipeline. And you already know that in the pipeline, if I give independent instructions, there will be no stalls, right? Because there will be no hazards, assuming that there is no structural hazard. So there will be no stalls, which means that my pipeline performance exists, performance is higher. But whereas if I give just this for loop, the problem is that there is a dependent instruction. What is that? There is a hazard. What is the hazard? The hazard is a control hazard, right? Because every instruction, after one instruction, it is dependent on the branch instruction. So I am doing loop unrolling. Is this clear till now for everybody? So can we go forward?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, why should the compiler do only 4 loops? Why can't I just remove this for loop? And let's say the compiler is even more aggressive, right? So, and one thing to remember is loop unrolling can be done at the compiler level. At the hardware level, you can't do it. Of course, hardware does much more sophisticated optimizations, but this is one that the hardware will not be able to do it. So let's say the compiler is even more aggressive. It's like it's always trying to do as much best to you as possible as a programmer. So it says, okay, this guy is writing this for loop. I don't want to have a branch instruction at all. So what the compiler does is, so now it will say, okay. So it will say, okay, first I is 0. And then I1, I2, I3, I4, I5, I6, I7. And similarly, it will say, okay, I0, I1. You get the point, right? So I am writing all the instructions in one shot. So it will do the unrolling for you. So it will not have any branch instructions. So it will continue like this and say, okay, A of I plus 99 is equal to 3 into X into I plus 99. Okay, so now you have 2 choices in the compiler. You can do this particular optimization, or the one where it unrolls completely. Now, if you compare this, right? This, let's say this is optimization 1, right? And this is optimization 2. And this is no optimization. Okay. Now, which one will you prefer? See, obviously, optimization 1 is better than no optimization. We already convinced ourselves about that. How did we convince ourselves? Because we have removed the branch instruction. But optimization 1, for every 4 instructions, I have a control hazard. And there is a chance that that will result in a stall. So now optimization 2 is saying, okay, we just unroll everything and there will be no branch instruction at all, which is perfect, right? So which one will you pick?
Sir, I think optimization 1 and optimization 2 are a bit different. Like optimization 2 will be a bit faster, that is okay. But after the compilation, the file that will be generated, that size will be more for optimization 2.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I'm okay. See, I'm only doing the compiler optimization. I mean, see, let's say the compiler takes much more time to do optimization 2. It's okay for me to spend time on compilation than on runtime, right? Because this runtime drastically reduces. You know that if there is a branch instruction, there is always a structural hazard. There's a chance, there's always a structural hazard, and that hazard might result in a stall. And you already know that if there's a stall, the performance goes down. So why have 25 branches? Right? Optimization 1 ends up having 25 branches, whereas optimization 2 doesn't have any branches, 0 branches, which means that optimization 2, even though I spend time on compilation, I should be happy with optimization 2, right?
So what if the size of your loop is like 1 billion? Then you'll have a billion instructions, and
so what's the issue?
that won't fit in your instruction cache.
Yes, so that's what you have to remember. See, there is a limit on the loop unrolling. The reason is because of the problem that we are discussing here. We said we add 1.0 here, right? So let's say I added somewhere here. Yeah, I added 1.0 here. Why am I adding 1.0? Because I'm going and fetching this particular instruction. So that itself is a memory access. So if I have say 1 billion, as they will say, right? If I generate 1 billion instructions, of course I have reduced 250 million branch instructions. That is really great. I have reduced 250 million branch instructions, but these are not actual instructions, right? Because there is one same program counter that is being called again and again. But here they are all different program counters. It means that I have generated 1 billion instructions. And that will, even though I will not have a structural result, I will have memory stalls, right? So because I have to go and fetch that instruction in the memory, so there will be memory stalls for this. So loop unrolling is not like a hammer where you go and hit it and you will solve the problem. You will have to be careful in hitting the nail, because the more you hit, you might break the wall, right? So, I mean, for you to know that the loop unrolling, there is a limit for it, you should understand how the system works. So that's why it's important for you to know that even instruction fetch is expensive. In your simulator, I have assumed that all instructions are there in the cache. I'm okay with it. Even all the problems that we were doing, we said, okay, instruction fetch is there. But that is not generally true. If I am enabling a cache and if I am saying none of them hit in the cache, then I am assuming that the instruction fetch is also a memory component. In exam, if I ask you this question, you have to assume that instruction fetch is also taking 1.5 seconds. If I don't want you, if I want you to assume that instruction fetch is 0, then I will assume, then I will write it in the question paper itself. I write it saying that, okay, assume that all instructions are already in the cache and there will be no miss for the instructions. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you do this problem now? So this is a very famous gate question. So that's why I put it up here. So generally, this has appeared at least 3 or 4 times in gate from past. They started asking it in 1999, I guess. From 1999, they have been asking the same question again and again. So here the line is nothing but the cache block. I previously told you that a block can also be referred to as a line. Okay, what's the answer? Among the 4, what's the answer?
So are the first 2 options the same?
Okay, did I copy the same thing? Okay, yeah, but it's still okay. I mean, what? Oh, let's do this. Okay, among 3, what is the answer? Yeah, now it's very straight, easy to say the answer.
Option 1.
Yeah, well, so did everybody get option 1? Can we move to the next question? Is this clear?
Can you once explain? I'm not able to.
Okay, see, there are it's a KV associative cache. The cache is divided into V sets. Okay, so now and each of which consists k lines, right? So now, if you have if you have say 10 sets, and you are bringing a block address, what will you do a mod with? What will you do J mod with, right?
10.
10, right? So that's what you are doing J mod V, right? And then there are k lines. So you have to go up till the k lines, right? So now the question is, these lines are in set S are sequenced before lines in set S plus 1. That is already given to you. The main memory blocks are numbered 0 onwards. Number J must be mapped. So this is anyway block number, right? So they have already said that it's a block number. If it was a byte number, then this would not have worked. They have already said that the main memory block number J must be mapped to any one of the cache lines. So now you are saying, I have identified the set, but where? Okay, so it's like this, right? So now, let's say I have, these are the empty boxes are this, right? So this is a line 1. This is line 1. I can store block 1 here. I can store block 2 here. And I can store block 3 here. I can store block 4 here, and so on and so forth, right? So let's say I am assuming this. And let's say block 1 and block 2 are set 0, and block 3 and block 4 are set 1. So now you have identified that you want to keep in this particular set. Okay, you want to keep the block in this particular set. Now, if I want to keep it in this particular set, how do I get where is B3? How do I know that it's in the third position? How do I know that it's in the third position? By doing into k, right? Whatever was there, number of sets. So this is set 1, right? So 1 into the number of lines previously.
Yes, sir, understood.
So, yeah. So into k to this into k plus k minus 1, right? Why plus k minus 1? Because I am going until up to
Range.
B3 range.
Yes.
That's all. That's all. Is this okay?
Yes, sir, understood.
Okay. Is everybody following, or? Yeah, if you're not following, please let me know. These are the kind of questions that will finally come in the exam. So if you're not following something, feel free to tell me, and we can. Okay, majority have followed it. Okay. Yeah, for 2 people anyway, I can't help you, I guess, because unless you speak out, I can't do anything about it. Okay, so can you tell me what's the answer for this question? A computer has a 256 kilobyte 4-way set associative write-back data cache with block size of 32 bytes. The processor sends 32-bit addresses to the cache controller. Each cache tag directory entry contains, in addition to address tag, 2 valid bits, 1 modified bit, and 1 replacement bit. The number of bits in the tag field of an address is how much? How many bits can you calculate and tell me?
So what are these modified and replacement bits? Like, are they like the dirty bit and which byte to
modified.
replace or something?
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it's up to them how they want to come up with it. So generally, different cache controllers will maintain different bits. They might have come up with some sophisticated replacement policy or something like that. So there are people who have tried replacement policies where the replacement bits are itself like 1 byte, like 8 bits or so, something like that. Okay, can you do this? So what's the cache size? Cache size is 256 kilobyte, 256 kilobyte. And the number of blocks, we'll find out the number of blocks. So the number of blocks is how much? Cache size divided by block size, right? So 32 bytes. So how many blocks are there in the cache?
2 power 13.
2 power 13. So 2 power 13 blocks are there. I think this we did it yesterday, right? But anyway, okay, this problem we did it.
It was not. It was direct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So the number of blocks is 2 power 13, and the number of sets is number of blocks, that is 2 power 13 divided by so divided by what?
Associative.
Associativity. So what is the associativity? Associativity is 4. right? So now it is 2 square, right? So it's 2 square, then it is 2 power 11. So number of sets is 2 power 11. So the index bits equal to 11,
11.
and offset bits is how much?
5.
32 bytes, 5. Tag bits is 32 because the CPU address is 32. 32 minus 11 minus 5, that is 16. But tag also has entries like the total tag address tag has
22 bits.
16 plus, this is also a gate question, 16 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1. So is this clear?
Sir, these 2, 1, 1, they should be subtracted or added in this 16?
In addition to address tag, right? So let's say, okay, it's a good question that you have asked. Okay, so anyway, I think, okay, so now let's say I have an address, right? So this is my address bit. Okay. And then I have, so this address, I'm splitting it into tag, index, and offset. Agreed? So this I hope everybody knows. So I have tag, index, and offset. Okay. So I have split up the tag, index, and offset. Can I put some portion of the dirty bit in this particular tag? Can I do something like this? What I'm asking is this: can I do something like tag, dirty bit, index, and offset? Can I do this? Why can't I do it? It seems fine to me, right? So
I mean, you're dividing it in the address thing into these things, right?
yeah. So what's the problem?
Yeah,
The tag won't be same, right? And dirty bit will depend upon how you are changing it.
Yes, right. So the dirty bit is not part of the address, right? The dirty bit is not part of the address. I think this is consuming it as a. So the dirty bit is not part of the address. Dirty bit is something which you are adding to keep track of whether a block has been modified or not. All right. So you are saying whether a block has been modified or not. If I make it as part of the address bit, then I will not be able to do it, right? Because it's already part of the address. So, so if the address has 0 there, it is 0 there. If it is 1 there, it's 1 there. It is not telling me anything about the dirty bit. So now you tell me, should I add it? So now this is ruled out, right? So this I am assuming you are convinced that this is ruled out. This I cannot do. Okay. So I am left with this. Agreed? So I am left with this. In this, now I have figured out that the tag bits are 16. Now he is saying, apart from the tag bits, I want to remember 2 valid bits, 1 modified bit and 1 replacement bit. So will you add 2 plus 1 plus 1 here, or will you subtract 2 minus 16 minus 2 minus 1 minus 1?
we have to add, sir.
We have to add, right? Because these are separate bits.
But sir, the total bits won't increase 32.
Where is the 32?
Sir is sending 32-bit addresses, right? So this all addition will increase.
No, right? So, okay. I think there is something here. Okay, just give me a second. Okay. See, your address is 32 bits. Now you have divided it into index, tag, and offset. I hope you are convinced that I cannot have dirty bit inside this. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, what does the cache have? So this is the cache controller. It has, let's say it has 2 blocks alone. It has tag structure. Okay, so this is the tag array. This is the data array. This is one cache. I am not worried which cache it is. This is L1 cache. Okay. Now, in this tag, how many bits are there? If this is what I am trying to do, let's say this was 8 bits. Somehow, okay, we'll take the example of whatever was there given. So it was 16 bits, right? So let's say it was 16 bits. Now, how many bits will you store here? How many bits will you store here? So this was 5. This was 4, right? Or this was how much?
11.
No, right? So what is happening? Okay, plus 11. Okay. So this was 11, right? So will you store 32 bits here? So will you store 32 bits here? Or will you store 16 bits here? Or will you store 11 bits here or 5 bits here? How many bits will you store here in this particular entry?
16.
Yeah, but is everybody following? I mean, I'm really worried. So is everybody following that it's 16 bits?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Does anybody think that it is not 16 bits? Please answer if you didn't understand it. So this is 16 bits. So I have to store 16 bits here. Why? Because I have to store only the tag. I don't have to store the index or the offset. I don't have to store the index or the offset. I just have to store the tag bits. Why do I have not store the index or the offset? Because they are anyway part of the address. I anyway have the address with me. So I use the index bits to come here because since I use the index bit to come here, I know that this particular bit will already encode the index bit in it. So I'll just compare these 16 bits with these 16 bits. After I compare, if it's a hit, then I will use this offset bits to search in any of these 32 bytes, right? So I don't have to store the 32 bits here. So I just have to store only 16 bits here. Okay. So now this is done. Now the architecture is ready. But now I want to figure out whether I want to have, let's say I want to write back only if the block gets dirty. So I want to remember if the block has been made dirty or not. So which means that for every block, I need to have a single bit. Right? So for every block, I want to have a single bit. Okay. So now how does the architecture look like? The architecture is something like this. And I'm convinced that I'm storing 16 bits here. I hope you are also convinced that it is 16 bits here, 16 bits here. Right? And this is the data. Now I'm assuming that for dirty bit, I want to store 1 bit per block. And I propose that I will store that 1 bit here, the part of the data array. So I will store 1 bit as part of the data array. So is it okay? Can I store it in the data location, in the data array location?
Yes, sir, if you want to store it only.
No, this is 32 bytes. Let's say the cache size was 32 bytes.
Then do you have to add 1 extra bit?
I have to add 1 extra bit. I can't store that 1 bit in the data array location. Do you agree? Because this data location is meant to store 32 bytes. If you use up 1 bit, then you are scrambling the data, right? You are actually corrupting the data, right? Let's say your data was 0x8e. Let's say your data was 0xEEE. And now instead of storing this 0xEEE, you would have stored, because it is dirty, you would have stored 0xFEE, right? Because you would have added 1 bit extra there, which is not wrong, because this is the data that you're talking about and not this data. So I cannot add 1 bit here. So this is not possible, right? So this is not possible. I cannot do this. So I cannot add 1 bit here. But I want to remember that this particular block is dirty. So I want to remember that this particular block is dirty. So I have to add 1 bit somewhere. So where will I add that 1 bit? I am proposing that I will add that 1 bit here as part of the tag. So maybe I will move this here. So now my tag entries will look something like this. 16 bits and then followed by another 16 bits. But there is 1 bit here and 1 bit here. So this is telling me it is dirty bit. And this is dirty bit. Okay. Now, how does the system work? When I will use the index bits to come to a particular, I will use the index bits to come to a particular set. Let's say it's a fully associative cache. I come to this set I use the 16 bits. I use the 16 bits to search in this particular location alone and this particular location. I will not use the dirty bit because the dirty bit is not part of the address. So I will use the 16 bits to search here and here. If it is a hit, then I will use the offset bits to read. But if the block is removed, let's say this block was removed, and if this dirty bit is 1, then I will write this to the cache. If the dirty bit is 0, I will not write it to the cache. Is this okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now, why do you, now how many bits are there as part of the tag?
17.
17 bits. Okay. Can you tell me, let's say I am a crazy guy. I have come up with an excellent replacement policy, and that replacement policy is using, say, 64 bits to remember what is the least recently used block. It's using 64 bits. I have come up with that. Now, can I say that the tag array per entry has 64 bits plus 16 bits. So can I say that it has 80 bits? Can I say that it has 80 bits per entry?
One dirty bit.
Okay, one dirty bit. Okay, this guy doesn't want to leave the dirty bit. Okay, so it's 81 bits. Can I say it has 81 bits?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Right, but this has nothing to do with the CPU address. CPU address is still 32 bits. So don't confuse the CPU address bits with the extra payload that you are having at the tag, the extra bits that you are having at the tag. So the tag array contains the tag bits, which are the part of the address, and any number of extra bits that you want to plug in here. You can come up with anything that you want. So somebody has asked, why do we need 2 valid bits, right? And what is the difference between replacement bit and modified bit? I don't know. I mean, somebody has come up with 2 valid bits. Now, why has somebody come up with 2 valid bits? There is a reason for it, but anyway, I mean, we'll not get into it. But it's up to them, right? Somebody has said, okay, I want to differentiate between the replacement bit and the modified bit. That is also there. I mean, we also know why that is there, but we'll not get into it. We are not worried why people are adding more number of bits. If you take least recently used, you cannot do it using a single bit. So the least recently used itself will have some number of blocks log base 2, right? So it will have like some saturation counter. Maybe you have some saturation counter. You have other things. Maybe why 2 valid bits? Maybe they are, like say it's a 64 byte block. They are dividing it up into 32 bytes and 32 bytes, and they are saying this only 30. So there is a very famous technique called amoeba cache. Of course, it didn't catch on. People published papers on this, but real world did not adopt it. So what they do is when the CPU requests for a byte, they don't go and fetch entire 64 bytes into the cache. So they fetch only 32 bytes. And if the CPU requests another 32 bytes, then only it will fetch 32 bytes. So it organically grows the cache. So there is no block size at all. So it organically grows from 16 bytes, 32 bytes to 64 bytes to 128 bytes, 256 bytes. So the block size is 256 bytes, but they don't start with 256 bytes. So it organically grows. That's why they call it as amoeba cache. So maybe there the valid bit is differentiating between these blocks, but we are not worried about all these techniques. As part of the tag, I can add any number of extra bits that I want. Is this okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, is there any distinction for which one is called address tag and which one is called just tag, like with and without the modified bit?
No, there is no difference. Generally, tag bits mean, like when you're talking about in the cache perspective, from the cache point of view, if you are saying tag bits, it includes all the dirty bit, modified bit, whatever crap bits that you want to add. In the address, when I'm saying you split the address into tag bits, then I am no longer talking about any of this crap. I'm just talking about the address tag bits. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, but by looking at the context, you should be able to figure out what is happening.
Yes, sir. So then in the solution that we just wrote, we should probably not write address tag for 20 bits.
Yeah, I mean, they have asked, so it's there since they have already given you that +1, +2, whatever, it's assumed that it's 20. Okay, you need not write it as address tag if it's uncomfortable.
Let's call it just tag, right?
Yeah, you can call it as just tag. Yes. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, that I will leave it to you. So it's all just semantics. Okay, I have to start one more topic. I have to do it, so I will take another 5 minutes extra. I think I'll get a call from the HSS department, but it's okay. So do you have a class after this?
No, sir.
Okay, so then I'll take 5 minutes extra and let them call me. Okay, it got late. So one thing is, please don't miss Monday's class. Monday I will be starting on main memory, so please don't miss this class. Okay. So now let's do, this was one of the questions that we were discussing long back. I don't know how many of you remember. I want to do matrix multiplication. What is the code for matrix multiplication? Can anybody tell me fast?
3 for loops. 1,
Yeah,
2,
3 for loops, right? I less than n. Let's say it's a square matrix. I am not worried about the okay. So is that's it, or should I have anything more here?
one more loop.
So let's have it as k, and this is k, and this is k. Okay. So now what should I write here?
A of
No, I should do something
B
here right
of-
before that. No, I should do something here before this, right? What should I do here? So let's say result. Right? First I should initialize it to 0, right? Okay. Then what should I write here?
result of ij plus equals to A of I k, B of
Mhm.
k.
Okay. Okay. So now this is fine, right? So this works. I hope this works. Yes, this works. Okay. So this you have already been seeing from along. So this is the matrix multiplication code. We have, I mean, I hope everybody knows this. Let's go this way. So what am I doing here? So if you see the matrix multiplication code, I have a matrix A. I have matrix A, which has certain number of rows. Of course, I also have columns. Okay, let's see columns. So there is this matrix B, which also has equal number of rows. Let's say we are only considering the square matrices. We are not worried about anything else. I'm assuming that this is a square matrix. So this is B. Right? So now I'm computing the value of C, and it's the same dimension, whatever it is. So how am I doing it? I am taking this particular row, multiplying it with this particular column, and saying this is the result. I hope everybody is able to see, right? So this for loop that I wrote, first I am taking this particular row and this particular column, and this is the result. Next, I am taking this particular row and this particular column, and this is the result. Next, I am taking this particular row, this particular column, and this is the result. Does everybody agree?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right. So this has been taught to you from your childhood days, right? So this is fine. So I have written the same. I have written the program in the same way when I was given this. But can you tell me now, since you know about computer organization, is this the right way to do it?
Accessing B will be slower because it's not row wise.
Yeah, that is one thing. The B will be slower. So how do I propose to do? Can I do B transpose? No, right?
Yes,
I
sir,
can't do
you
that.
can do B transpose.
Okay, if I do B transpose, how will I do it?
You do B transpose and then you multiply. Multiply them, but you go row wise instead of.
Okay, let's say if I do B transpose, the cost for doing the transpose itself gets added, right? So it means that I'm anyway touching this. There's a simpler way to do this. Okay, I agree with Devash's answer, but is there any other answer that there is a problem here? Okay, so let's take this, right? Let's say you are all machine learning experts, right? You will anyway become, go ahead.
Sir, if the matrix size is big, we can't fit it to the cache.
Yes, right. No, but I mean, if the matrix size is big, then I can't fit it in the cache. So what's the problem? If the matrix size is big, I can't fit it in the cache.
So maybe we can divide it into blocks, smaller blocks, and then add.
Yes, right. So what happens is generally we are not talking about 100 cross 100 matrix or 200 cross 200 matrix. These matrices are pretty huge because in today's world or even in any scientific application, the size of the matrix is pretty huge. Like one of the matrix that I worked on, the number of rows was 4 power 30. So 4 power 30 is an impossible thing to even fit it on a single system. I mean, irrespective of what the size is. Right? So it's so huge caches. I mean, so huge matrices are there already. So you can't fit this matrix on a single cache. So what do you do now? The best way, can you tell me how do I like say what happens, right? Let's say I can't even fit this particular row in the I can't fit this particular row in the cache, nor this in the cache, nor this in the cache. Right? So I can only fit some amount of them in the cache. So what is happening when I'm reading this particular and multiplying this? Yes. So let's say I am multiplying these two initially. These two are a miss. Right? These two are a miss. They are compulsory misses. Right? And then these two are misses, these are compulsory misses. Then these two are misses, they are compulsory misses. These are misses, they are compulsory misses. But my assumption was that when I come later again, this will be a compulsory miss, but this I was hoping that this will be a hit. Why I was hoping that this will be a hit? Because I was hoping that it would still be remaining in the cache after some time. But that is no longer the case if I can't fit this entire thing into the cache. Right? Because and this will also be a miss, right? Because I can come back to it again later, but it's no longer there. So the number of misses are pretty high if I'm writing a plain vanilla matrix multiplication. So now one of the solutions that Amit Bhai is proposing is I will do something like this. Did everybody follow what's the problem with this matrix multiplication?
Yes.
So you are not able to fit it. So you are not adhering to temporal locality because you are assuming that there is temporal locality, but there is no. Anyway, you are not adhering to spatial locality here. Right? So this is anyway you're screwing up the spatial locality here because these two are not spatially related. That's what Devashi pointed out. But you are now no longer adhering to temporal locality also. You are not adhering to temporal locality also because the next time you come here, you are not finding that block. So you are not here. Of course, you are adhering to spatial locality because this particular value will already be brought into the cache because you brought into this value into the cache. The block size is 64. That I'm still okay. But I am not adhering to temp. So here I am not adhering to temporal locality. Here I am not adhering to spatial locality. One way to convert the spatial locality to one way to overcome the spatial locality is to do a transpose, but transpose itself has a cost. So I don't want to do this. So now I want to convert this not having spatial locality to temporal locality and to maintain this temporal locality. So the way I do it is this. I have the same block, same matrix A, same matrix B, and same matrix C. But what do I do is I will take blocks of caches. Sorry, blocks of the data. So I will say I am multiplying this particular matrix, only this 4 cross 4 matrix, right, with this 4 cross 4 matrix and generating this 4 cross 4 matrix. This is a partial matrix. This is partial that I'm generating initially. But I'm computing this with this. So I will take this row, multiply with this and get it here. I will take, how do I do it? I will take this row, multiply it with this row and compute an element here. I will take this, I will take this row, I will compute this, and then this, and then this, and this. Of course, this is not yet complete. Then I go to the next sub place. So I go here. Sorry. Right? Why? Because so that's how I compute everything. So this, of course, will again become Rho. So this will be OLO and I know that you might not have understood completely, but just give it a thought. I am doing block-based matrix multiplication. If you take any scientific code today, their backbone is matrix multiplication. You take any machine learning code, any deep learning code, any other code that you can think of, matrix are the backbones. Tensors are the backbones of this. Either it will be a vector matrix product or matrix product or three-dimensional matrix with a two-dimensional matrix product or something like this. and they will either run some, I am assuming you already know what is SVD and things like that, right? Like what is QR decomposition, what is LU decomposition, what is decomposition of a matrix, right? So all these things you know. So when I want to do this, backbone is handling matrices, and you are not just handling 100 bytes or 100 elements or 200 elements, you are handling a huge amount of elements. So it's important for you to know that if I just do a plain vanilla LU decomposition, or do a plain vanilla QR decomposition, or I do a plain vanilla matrix multiplication, it will be pretty slow. I mean, you can see that the cache misses will be so high that your performance drastically reduces. So the only way to overcome this is to do a block-based matrix multiplication. So any scientific application that you take today would use this block-based matrix multiplication. It is because they would have optimized it for an architecture. So this particular block size is dependent again on the architecture. So that will be itself a parameter. So that itself you can run it and figure out what is the best parameter that fits into the cache, and then they will run it. There is a trade-off. So this is a very interesting thing that you can think about. You can start. I mean, if you are interested, please try to write code. Don't look it into the internet, because in internet this thing will already be available, because a lot of